And hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Space Station Guys channel. I would like to welcome all of our viewers. I can see there are a few of us. Just 1 second. Yes, so hello everybody in this beautiful evening. What a day to celebrate ISS International Space Station photography. I've got with me Martin Lewis. You can see him above me. Hello, Martin.
Hi there, Sabi. How are you?
There we go. I'm all right. How are you doing?
Very, very well, thank you. Yeah,
Thanks.
looking forward to this evening's event.
Thanks for accepting my invitation. It's a massive honor, to be honest, because there are only a handful of people, I think, in the world who are actually doing International Space Station photography, especially on a level like yourself. And so it's a great honor, and hopefully we're gonna have a lovely chat tonight about
I've been looking forward to it.
How we do this amazing hobby. But before we kickstart, I cannot ignore the fact that basically today we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of continuous human presence on board the International Space Station. I mean, what an achievement! Honestly, what an international achievement. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the technology that's up there is just astounding, isn't it? And a real example to people of how different nations can work together, put differences aside, put politics to one side, work on the technology and achieve something utterly amazing. And I really think it should be promoted more. You know, more people should know about it. Lots of the public don't know about the International Space Station. They don't know it's been up there and don't know it's been celebrated, been up there, occupied for 20 years. It's not even a news item today, unfortunately. But no, it's an amazing achievement. Such a fantastic piece of engineering excellence.
Exactly, and I think the list is almost countless, that how many things we can be thankful to be developed in the International Space Station just for the benefit of humankind. And I think it's unparalleled, this level of cooperation between different countries. And let's be honest, it wasn't too long ago when America and the Soviet Union was really competing against each other, and 22 years ago they just decided that, okay guys, let's do this together. Why don't we build something that's beneficial for everybody, and we can be all thankful, down on the ground. So yes, our viewers can see basically all the crew that ever been on the International Space Station. I just wanted to show all the 240 people who ever called the International Space Station home. So these are our heroes. These are our rock stars. They are the guys who I like to show up and down to, from young age to the oldest, because these guys actually inspirational and inspiring the younger generation to actually do and study and do the heavyweight lifting and actually go for your own goal, because you can achieve whatever you want, basically. So I think that's just an incredible message, for us, for everybody. So, and what a privilege that we are imaging this particular machine, honestly.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Before we continue, I would like to just show another piece of video. It's about 3 minutes because I think today is such a memorable day that it definitely deserves a little bit of attention, from our behalf. So allow me just, it's gonna be a few ESA Internet European Space Station astronauts who just gonna talk about their experience and their opinion about this lovely thing. So bear with me for the another 3.5 minutes, please.
20 years of International Space Station. One of the privileges that we have while living on orbit is to make the ordinary extraordinary. Even a dinner becomes a chance to go beyond any limitations and any heritage. I remember one dinner where we had my crewmate Jessica Meir of Jewish heritage, enjoying Russian and Italian food together with the Russian colleagues, Americans, and Hazza Al Mansouri, who is the first United Arab Emirates astronaut. There are no limitations to what we can do when we want to do extraordinary things. Maybe the challenge for the next 20 years is let's do extraordinary things also on the ground.
Hey, I'm ESA astronaut Alexander Gerst, and what you see behind me here are the training mock-ups for the International Space Station at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. And believe me, I've spent a lot of time in these mock-ups. And actually, I've spent even more time on the real International Space Station, about 1 year. What might seem long to you is actually only 1/20th of the inhabited lifetime of ISS. That means if you're 40 years old or younger, more than half of your life a human has lived on the ISS at any time. That's an amazing achievement. So if I could think of one property of this fantastic machine that I could pick out, then I would say the ISS is the most improbable machine that humanity has ever built. We all know there's a lot of science going on, and it's very important for us down here on Earth to get those science data, but we rarely look at what an achievement it was to actually build that machine. The modules, such as the ones that you see behind me, were actually built on 4 different continents and were launched individually on rockets into orbit at 28,000 kilometers an hour, where they have been put together. And they had to fit with a precision more than 100th of a millimeter together, but they've never been tested on Earth if they fit together. That's how sure engineers were that this machine would work. That's what an achievement it was, to put this machine together in space, working together across the globe. So you see from this fantastic achievement that international cooperation is the key. If you try to do things alone, you can only get so far. If you work together with other countries, you can achieve things that one nation could never achieve alone. Plus, it forces you to work together in peace. So that's an achievement alone that I think is already worth the celebration of today. Happy birthday, ISS.
So hey, as you know, this year we celebrate 20 years of continuous human presence on the ISS, which is an unbelievable achievement. I was lucky enough to be part of the last 10 years of that story, that ongoing story. And to me, what's so special about the ISS is its truly international nature, the international nature of that program. We got people from all over the globe working with the same ideals of space exploration, research, peaceful cooperation, and that makes it, to me, truly unique and special. So congratulations of all the ISS partners on 20 years of success on board the ISS, and here's to an even better future of exploring farther together.
Hello, I'm Tim Peake, and it's incredible to think that this year we're celebrating 20 years of International Space Station occupation. To my mind, the most incredible feat of human engineering, the size of a football pitch, over 400 tons of hardware in low Earth orbit. But it was built as a scientific laboratory, and for that time it's been doing valuable research for the benefit of everybody back on Earth, such as investigations into new drugs, sustainable technology, solar power, renewables, crop growth and water regeneration. But more than that, it's about international collaboration. It couldn't be done by one nation alone, and it just goes to show what we can do when we work together. I had the privilege of living and working on the space station for 6 months, and it was the most incredible time of my life. I hope that many other astronauts in the future get that opportunity too. So good luck, whatever the future may hold.
All right, so that's supposed to be our message for today, and I hope that we tuned you already for the for this topic for the ISS, because it's an incredible story, to be frank. All right, so let's steer back to the original topic, and that's how to take photos of the International Space Station. So what I am going to do is I will bring in Martin Lewis's presentation, and I think we're not gonna keep you hanging any longer. We just gonna cut right into it. So take it away, Martin. All yours.
Okay. Thanks, Abby. So yeah, this is a talk about how I got interested in astronomy and astrophotography, and particularly my interest in imaging the International Space Station. It all started, I suppose my first interest in astronomy started when I was quite small. My father used to take us for walks. I remember looking up at the sky on winter walks, seeing Orion in all its splendor. And my father knew all the legends of the constellations, these amazing myths and legends associated with these great figures in the sky. And I just loved the romance of it all. And that there were these great stories associated with what you could see above. We had a pair of binoculars, but when I was about 10, my father took me to a department store in London, and we bought my first telescope. If you go on a couple of slides,
There
you
we
can
go.
see a picture of it, because
So if I understood right, this is how you got into astronomy and astronomy photography, basically. So from
That's
young
right,
age.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I bought this in 1969. It was a 60 times with a 50mm lens, but the lens was of such poor quality that it was stopped down to 10mm.
Okay.
So it was a tiny lens, only slightly bigger than a pupil, and I couldn't see anything with it, except for one night I managed to find Saturn, which you can see in the next slide, a view. So this is in 1969.
Wow.
The rings were face on, and just that tiny perfect little jewel of Saturn, and I was completely hooked. So I became really keen on astronomy. Go on to the next slide. Not too far from me on the Finchley Road was Fullerscopes. Dudley Fuller made his own telescopes there of different sizes, and he used to stare at the window, spend hours looking through the window and poring through Edmund Scientific Catalogue. And they had this big round window, and it was like looking into heaven itself there, looking into Fullerscope's window that now is Telescope House. So I've gone to the next slide. So there were these telescopes in this catalogue there, and I was pretty much the age of the boy on the top left there, with a 4-inch telescope. And the idea back then of owning, a telescope that was 8 inches or even a 10-inch telescope was just beyond imagination.
Holy moly, I'm just checking the prices. This is shocking for me. That a Newtonian telescope is £132. Is it with mount or without, you think? on the right bottom corner?
I think that's probably everything.
It's
yeah,
probably
if you tot it up on that column,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
with the mount and everything. And there's quite a few of those telescopes still around, the old Fulloscopes telescopes.
Okay.
They've lasted the test of time. So my first telescope, if you go to the next page, was a 3-inch refractor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was £35. And I used it every clear night. I'd be out there in the back garden in Finchley, observing clusters and nebulae and galaxies and planets. And I used to sketch them. And I studied for O-level astronomy on my own in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
I went off to university. Astronomy stopped then as other interests took priority. But if you go on to the next slide,
Mm-hmm.
you can see some of my sketches back then through 3-inch refractor, which I've still got that as well, and it gives superb images.
Awesome.
I've used it for testing some of the components on my other telescopes because the optics are so good. So yeah, I lost interest for a while, and then it rekindled in 1989. I was over in Western Ireland in Donegal, and I was over there for a wedding, and there was a comet around there, Comet Austin, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and crept over the sleeping bodies on the floor. Everyone had crashed out of this house, and I went out and walked down the road under this absolutely pristine sky to see Comet Austin.
All right.
And I was back interested again. And since last being interested, the Dobsonian revolution had occurred. So big aperture scopes, lightweight, big aperture scopes at much lower cost were now available.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided, because I was working now, I could actually afford to buy one myself. I didn't rely on my father to get one. And if you go on to the next page, you can see that scope, which was a 10-inch dark star Dobsonian, which I immediately started pulling apart and improving and making it more suitable for what I wanted. But that was a big jump from 3 inches to 10 inches. So that was 3 times the aperture. So like 10 times the light gathering power.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could see loads more with that. So on the next page, there's
That's exactly what I have. That's exactly what I have now, a 10-inch. But I'm just wondering how different the Dobson base is. It's totally different to what, compared to what we are using. This sort of rotatable, the Skywatcher sort of standard base for Dobsons, and it's a new design for me. It's interesting. I find it interesting.
Yes. So that was the classic, box Dobsonian as invented by John Dobson, really.
Mm-hmm.
That old design, and then I put some legs on it to make it more stable.
Okay.
And added slow motion controls to the scope. So I added lots of features to it to improve its performance. But so that was great. But I thought I need a bigger scope. I want to see more detail in galaxies and nebulae and so on. And I wanted a scope that I could take away to dark places and where you'd get better contrast in these objects. So I hit on the idea of an 18-inch telescope, which I thought would probably be about the biggest that was reasonably transportable. So I set about building a telescope which I call Fossil Light, which you can see on the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
That was a 3-year go on from there. Tabby, one more page.
There we go.
So there we go. So this is 18-inch Dobsonian.
That's what some of our viewers called, are you using Hubble telescope by any chance?
A little smaller than the Hubble, but a lot bigger than the 10-inch. So that packs down all the parts, disassemble, and it goes in the back of a hatchback.
Wow.
So there I am using it in mid Wales.
Wow.
So every year we go off to mid Wales and observe from their fabulous location in the very low populated part of mid Wales.
I am pretty
So
sure that through this one, this must be incredible what you can see through this, even visually. This must be just jaw-dropping.
Yeah, there's just, even though that now is 27 years old, I just never tire of the views through it. Yes. And there's just so many objects that you can see through it. There's a lifetime of observing with a telescope of that sort of size, and loads of detail that you can see in galaxies, on planets, nebulae, and so on. So I used that, and I did a lot of sketching. You can, on the next page, you can see some of the sketches that I've done, showing sort of photographic views. You go on to the next slide, Sabi. So there we have some galaxies. Sketches. And a nebula called Thor's Helmet in Canis Major. And on to the next page, we have the Veil Nebula, one of the real showpiece objects in the sky. Looking at that with the telescope of this sort of size and an oxygen 3 filter or a UHC filter and a wide angle eyepiece, it's just absolutely staggering, the amount of detail that you can see. This just touches what you can see. You can see loads more than this in the Veil Nebula. It's just such a tremendous object. But one of my real favorites is on the next page are compact galaxy clusters. So I love drawing these, particularly the Hickson catalogue, which is several galaxies within a certain, I think it's something like 5 arc minutes, the Hickson cluster. So I love drawing those. But it's quite a big scope, and I wanted something that I could get out more easily and use in the back garden. So
because no matter how we see it, bigger the scope, more problems you have with cooling down and just carrying it around, I guess. And it's not always the most convenient thing to have.
No, that's right. If you wanted to have a quick look at something, it's 15 minutes. 15 minutes to set up. It's not too bad. But I wanted something that was easier than that. And so I built a smaller Dobsonian reflector, half the aperture, which is on the next slide, which is based around a set of optics from a guy called David Hines, some very good optics in there. And the idea was to give very good planetary views. So again, Dobsonian design, up, down, left, right, which I love. I love that simplicity of design. It's a very human frame of reference. Equatorial mounts I've never really got on with. It's always a struggle for me. I love the up, down, left, right. It's just, there it is, swing it around. You don't have to think it through as to which direction you should move it. That gave.
I cannot agree more. To be fair, it's the same. Yeah, same here.
The number of beginners who've given up, because their first scopers had an equatorial mount, and they thought that they should spend time, polar aligning it and getting the motor working, and all they want to do is just plonk it down.
Exactly.
Plonk your Dob down, put an eyepiece in it, and go to the object. That's how it should be. It should be like that for a beginner.
The other day,
don't want to be struggling.
The other day, I visited my good friend Phil Harper, and we were doing some Mars imaging, and I watched him assembling his equatorial mount with all the bits and pieces, the counterweights and the cables and this and that. And you know what? I was just standing there, and I was just laughing or smiling at least, because for me, I just grabbed the equatorial platform. I put the base on it. You just put the scope in, and that's it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Off you go. That's it. Cabling. No. It's just so much easier, and I totally agree with you. It puts off so many people. They have lots of enthusiasm, and eventually they are like, I nearly gave up. I started with an EQ5 mount, and I never managed to polar align. And it doesn't matter whose fault it is. At the end of the day, it doesn't work. So you're disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, people don't have much time. You've got limited time. In this country, you might get, a half-hour clear spell. You could do a bit of observing in there, but if you've got an equatorial mount, you spend that whole half an hour lining things up, and then it's clouded up, and it's just an exercise in frustration, really, for a lot of people.
That is true. Yes.
So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Dobsonians.
Same here. Absolutely.
So, with that scope, I can do sketches and so on, but I thought I'd have a go at planetary imaging. So I built a tracking platform, and on the next slide you can see the scope on my equatorial tracking platform. So you keep the human up, down, left, right Dobsonian mount, the Altaz mount that's so easy to use, but then you combine it with a tracking platform that means that it stays on the object. So that's brilliant for planetary imaging.
By the way, did you build your own equatorial platform, or you bought from somebody?
Yeah, so that's built. So I built that myself. So yeah, all the major equipment I built myself. I built both scopes, and I built the equatorial platform. Right. Deceptively difficult, I would say. That's really quite a hard thing to build, to design and build, and get all the angles and the shapes of the bearing surfaces to be just right, so that it works. But work it did, and on the next page you can see my first image, one of my first images, which is Mars back in 2005. So this is a similar sort of view to the views we're having at the moment. So this is the apparition after the closest apparition. So the closest apparition back then was 2003. This is 2 years on from it. And the same here, it was 2018. We're 2 years on from it. And you can see the small southern polar cap there. And, the dark albedo features are about the same sort of angle now as they were back then, and it was a similar sort of size.
Incredible how much larger the ice cap was compared to this year.
Yeah. Well, on the south, but the north, that's
so south is always
at the top
up
there.
Okay.
Yeah. You got the bottom is the North Polar hood, so that's cloud rather than the polar cap at the bottom there.
I see.
So on to the next slide. The next slide gives you a few more images. So I tried to do all the planets. So by about 2012, I've been using the scope for 7 years then. I thought, it's time to migrate. It's time to try the big one. Let's put that on the equatorial platform and see what we get with that. So just in 2012, I thought I'd have a go. If you go on to the next slide, that's mapping Mars. So I managed to take images of the whole of the surface of Mars and blend it together using a program called WinJupos to create a map of Mars. And it's amazing with an 8 3/4 inch scope. You go on to the next slide, all the features that you can see on Mars, all labeled there, and I found that a very satisfying exercise. But in 2013, I moved to the big scope, which you can see on the next slide, put that on the same equatorial platform. So I had designed the equatorial platform to take the weight of the big scope, but always been too scared to try it in case it didn't work. But work it did, and it worked really well. really, yeah, worked superbly well. So yeah, there we are. That's what it looks like. I move it to different parts of my garden in St Albans, so different parts allow me to see different parts of the sky. I've got various big trees around me, so you know, I've got an upper patio, a lower patio. I might go out in the front garden sometimes, just depending on what I want to see. So while we're on talking about Mars, on the next slide you can see one of my Mars images from 2014, which I was really pleased with.
That's beautiful.
And then a few weeks ago I managed to get one even better, which is on the next slide. So this is my best ever view of Mars.
Wow.
Showing Solus Lacus right in the middle there, the eye of Mars.
Incredible.
And those lovely structures, Aurorae Sinus to the left of those. And you can actually see Valles Marinaris there, just left of centre. You can see the Martian Valley moved down, just above there, there.
Somewhere here.
Yeah, just below that dark region.
Oh, this one.
There's a little, that's it. That's it. That's the Valles Marinaris.
And that's is this Olympus Mons? Yeah. No.
No. Olympus Mons is down to the right, off to the right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not in view yet. But really pleased with that. And that was the first image, this apparition. So very pleased with that. And then back in 2017, my first image of Jupiter of that apparition is on the next slide. And that's one of my favorite ever Jupiter views. So
incredible.
I seem to get lucky on the first views of each apparition of different objects. So I was very pleased with that.
And I really love the oval BA. Or as people call it, the GRS Junior.
yeah.
So yeah, that's beautiful. And this is from not this year.
No, that's 2017.
17, because I don't think you can take anything similar to this year.
No, it's too low.
Too low. Yep.
I haven't got anything decent this year, really. It's just way too low, really. And then Saturn is on the next slide. So that's from last year, September last year. Got a nice view.
Incredible.
And that was only 16 degrees altitude. And then last year, there's an image on the next slide of Uranus. So I'm quite interested in imaging Uranus and Neptune and trying to pick up detail on those planets. Wow. So this image was entered into the Astronomy Photographer of the Year last year and came second, which I was very pleased about in the planet section.
Congratulations! That's a massive achievement. It's a great recognition, to be fair, and it's local for us.
Yeah. And then Venus, got a nice Venus on the next slide.
Wow.
From the 19th of May. So I did a lot of Venus imaging this year, trying to capture detail on the night side of the planet,
which is just mind blowing. It's truly incredible. I mean, I've never seen anything similar to that.
So this is if you use the right wavelengths, you can look through the Venusian atmosphere and see variations in temperature on the surface of the planet.
So that's thermal radiation, basically. What you are detecting.
Really, yeah. And you see height variations because the higher areas are cooler.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, I think many of us, who just saw your images, I mean, this is just truly staggering, and I think many of us would be pleased half of this quality of these planets. But right, so tell us, please, give us an inside look of how did you get into ISS imaging, because I can see that your planetary sort of observation is really prominent in the past few years.
Yeah.
But how did it started to you with the ISS?
Well, yeah. So with the ISS, I was waiting for Mars to come around in 2007, and I heard about this guy called John Locker, who lived near Liverpool, and he took some amazing images that actually showed detail in the ISS, and you can see that on the next slide.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So he sent out a few images, and I thought, wow, that is absolutely amazing. So he was using an 8-inch telescope and a 2-cam. Could I get something similar? So at the time I subscribed to a magazine called Practical Astronomer. On the next page, and they had an article in there about how to photograph the ISS, and they tried using a paramount and programming a very expensive equatorial mount to track the ISS, and it was a failure. It didn't work. It was too difficult. So they resorted to get some images for the article. They resorted to hand tracking, and it worked, and they got some images. So I thought, well, if they can do that, I can do that. So on the next slide, I thought I'll have a go with my scope, and there we are. So you don't need the equatorial mount. You track it through the finder while you're recording, chasing it across the sky. Sabi does the same thing. And if you keep the exposure short enough, you freeze the movement, and you hope to get some good frames with the ISS on there. So my first one was on the October the 9th, 2007. So you can see in my first shot there, I was absolutely delighted with that.
No one can deny that this is a TIE fighter, and I think the conspiracy theories got us. Yeah, that's incredible. That is, and we're talking about 2007. Oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know that it exists when you were taking photographs of it.
So yeah,
fantastic.
so I was really pleased with that. This little thing buzzing around in the video, and to pull out some detail like that. And I had to guess at what settings to use, but I thought, oh, this shows some promise. So a couple of days later, I tried again, and on the next slide, this is my second attempt.
Wow.
Quite a big jump in
massive
in quality there, but you can see how limited the structure is compared to what it's like now. You've only got 2 solar panels there, one on each side, and single rows of reflectors, so you've got a much more limited structure.
Oh, right. Okay, so if I'm right, that the radiator were narrower, or they just not as big as they meant to be, or they just rotated here?
Well, there's only 2 as a radiator each side.
But a single stripe, basically.
Yeah, a single stripe. Yeah. And a single solar panel. And then on the next slide, you can see.
So this is not a solar panel, or just single one side and single the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then.
And no Kibo, no European module, nothing.
No, none of that. So that was all to come. So on the 20th of October, I got a really nice pass there in very good conditions, and you can see the changing perspective of the ISS. So I was delighted with that.
Wow. For me, I have to say that for me, ISS was always existing in its current form. So for me, everything that's not the current form, so anything missing, is just incredibly nice to see, because this is something I have never seen and photographed. I only seen the final product, if I could say. So this is staggering for me.
So when did you start imaging the ISS, Sabi?
2000, I think 15, or 16, something like that. So quite late.
So I think it was essentially finished in 2011. So a few years after that. But I was imaging while they were still building. So
yes,
you'll see in the next slide, you can see some changes from the 11th of October on the left to the 15th of December. So you can see on the left, there was one solar panel, and then there's two solar panels and loads more of the reflectors there. So that was after STS-120 visited. So STS-120 visited on the 23rd of October. And loads more structure went up as a result,
Yes.
And you can see on the next slide the shot taken by STS-120 as it arrived, and then as it left, it took the shot on the right. So you can see the extra features that got added.
All right, so I can see single stripe radiators, and there was only one and another radiator from these ones, which are on a starboard, on a truss sections. All right, and nothing else in here. This is incredibly weird.
So I think after STS-120 left, they obviously added more radiators to the left of the main fuselage there, because there's three in my picture in December, and when it left in probably early November, there was only one radiator stripe there. But that was exciting to see that. And then on the next slide,
if you may just allow me one sentence, interesting that you see this solar panel on the Zarya module. I've only noticed in this position, or in this state, what you can see on the right hand side photo. So even today it's folded, but here it's just the transition. So they stopped using the pair of solar panels on the Zarya module, basically, but here on the left it was still in use. So that's just an incredible interesting detail for me.
Yes
Right.
Okay, and then on the next slide you can see, so this is July 2008, and more had been added. So on the next slide you can see what's been added. So they added the Kibo lab with STS-123. They added the Kibo lab in STS-124. There's a Kibo lab support module, 123, and the European Columbus lab was added by 122. So there's a lot more features there added to the end of the main fuselage.
Yes,
that you can see there.
It's interesting that here it's a support module. I think anybody who's a bit familiar today with the ISS, it's called the exposed facility today. I think that's where they. Am I correct? No. Oh, actually. Oh, you mean this cylindrical bit on the top of Kibo?
Yes.
You mean?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Never mind.
Yes.
Okay. By the way, if you allow me, Floris Holmes says second attempt. This is almost demotivating, and he's a big smiley. So I think it's worth a massive kudos for you that your second attempt was so amazing.
Thank you. Nice of you to say.
Yes. So okay. So we grew a bit, right? So we got Kibo and we got Columbus modules.
Yeah. So so the shuttle. So also back then the shuttle was visiting the ISS. So I managed to get a few shots of the shuttle visiting. So if you go on a couple of slides.
So this is again something that I totally missed. So again, this is something. Please talk as much as you like.
Yeah, okay. So the first time I managed to image it was February 2008, 10th of February, and here are some different perspectives of the shuttle. And upper left, you can clearly see it end on
This one,
there.
yes.
Really pleased with that.
Incredible.
Yeah, you can see some other features there in some of the other shots from different perspectives. But
so do I understand well that we see it atop, basically on the upper left photo, and from the bottom on the bottom right photo? So the bottom of the shuttle, because I can see this is more reflective. So I guess this is the whiter parts, and then we see basically the ceramic tiles on the bottom, I guess.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. It's quite hard to interpret some of those pictures.
It's
I
just,
guess we're looking at the front, so on the up top left, I guess we're looking at the front, the nose of the shuttle rather than the back end, because I would have thought you'd see the boosters if it was at the back end.
That's true, and I think these two white spots here, and here, I think this is the payload bay as it open. It's
Right.
in an open position, I reckon, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Yeah,
But it's
I don't know.
Wow, staggering.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Very.
And then the next slide shows probably a better view of it.
Yes, definitely.
And that actually made the Times Online, which you see in the next slide.
Yes.
Which I was delighted about.
Wow.
And then if we go on, you can definitely see the booster in the next shot.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
And you can see the payload doors open. So I guess it probably was that same orientation in the last shot. I don't know whether sometimes the shuttle will be one way round and other times it'll be the other way round. I don't know.
Good question, but as far as I know, I think it's always so the nose facing towards the zenith side of the station, and the engines are facing towards the nadir side, so towards Earth. Because for some reason, this is how I always remember. So it's pointing away from Earth with nose away, I think. But I'm not, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So that's Discovery. So the first one was Atlantis, then Discovery, and then July 2009, I got an image of Endeavour at a different angle.
This was a lower pass, I guess. I reckon.
Yes, that's
not
right.
As overhead one instead.
Yeah, which I actually find more interesting. You get a more sort of three-dimensional feel.
Exactly.
For the station, and actually with the Dobsonian, I always find it a nightmare when they go straight overhead because you just can't steer the scope.
No.
In Dobson's hole over the top of you. So if you've got like a 60-degree pass, I'd take that any day over a 90-degree pass.
Yes.
Because you can follow it the whole way.
Yes.
90's impossible. And then the big one was 2011, 29th of March or 20th of March. And I got a lovely view there of the Discovery docked onto the ISS.
Awesome.
And he'll go on to the next shot.
Ooh, I reckon something big is coming here.
Yeah. So this at the time I didn't know, but afterwards I found out that there was an EVA in progress. So Steve Bowen was outside the Columbus lab doing some work, and there's an extra spot in that position. So I did a lot of investigative work to try and find out if I had actually imaged him. So there's a load about it on my website. I don't know if you want to go to my website now, Sabi, and
let's do it.
show the viewers
Well,
the page.
yeah, we can.
Just briefly.
All right. I just need to quickly exit the presentation and okay, Sky inspector.co.uk. That's Martin's website.
Yeah.
And feel free to navigate there. I show you his webpage. Definitely, please do visit his website because it's full of incredible. I mean, whatever you already see, planetary image is just a tiny fraction of what he's done. But what's related to us is other stuff.
And then STS-133 spacewalk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all the details of the investigation there of, what I actually saw on that night, what evidence is there. And the great thing is, because NASA is publicly funded,
yes,
they make all this information freely available.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually go to the videos and see where Steve Bowen was while it was passing over the UK. So
cool.
while I was imaging it, I could get a video that shows where exactly he was at the time I was imaging, and then I could come back and do a geometrical reconstruction of the angle that I'm viewing it, the angle he would present to me.
So I guess if I go back to the presentation, you have some shots related to that.
Yeah, so go back to that. If you go back to where we left off.
Okay, so that was your website.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So you can get images like this. So this is 41 seconds before my image. There's a shot there. And 2.5 minutes after my image, there's a shot there. He's in the same place. So unless he's a very fast mover, he was in that position when it passed over the UK. So that then allowed me, if you go to the next page, to work out the geometry when I took my shot, the exact geometry. Fortunately, it's an overhead pass, which makes it so much easier because it's all in one plane. And I was able to do the construction on the following page, which gives a view of what, if you go on to the next page, Sabi.
There we go.
Yeah, so I managed to do a construction of the perspective onto him on the end of the manipulator arm, and the size of Steve Bowen and the manipulator arm and the end of the Columbus lab, relative to the 3 spots in my image. So that little circled area that you saw a few slides back, those, do you want to go back 4 slides just
there we
quickly?
go.
Yeah, so that circled area there, you see those 3 little spots, those are massively magnified. If you go back again to those slides,
there we go.
Yeah, those are those 3 spots there.
These 3 spots.
Yeah, so if you go to the next slide, you can overlay it. And there you go. So I think that my image shows the combined light of the astronauts and the last part of the ISS manipulator arm during the EVA. So I don't think I've imaged the astronaut alone, just the combined light of the astronaut and the end of the arm. So it was quite interesting to do that investigation.
I mean, this is just incredible, to be fair, honestly. I mean, I know, as far as I know, there are only yourself, Rolf van den Berg, and Thierry Legault, if I say his name right. So only 3 of you has ever managed to capture a spacewalk, if I'm correct.
I think so, yeah.
What we know of. And I think probably the people who are listening to our talk need to understand that to capture something like this, it's so many things need to happen in the right way. They need to be out. You need to have a right pass with the right elevation. You should have passes at first place. You should have clear sky. You should not mess up the imaging. And if all this goes perfectly well, you still need to find out what you can see on your photograph. And I guess that was probably the hardest part of your journey, because as you said, you didn't even know that you captured this incredible spacewalk.
But it's great to be able to piece it all together, to pull all the evidence together, and to be able to, you know, prove one way or another what I saw. And I mean, Thierry Legoux, definitely, I mean, his images are absolutely amazing. And you can clearly see there's an astronaut, there's a figure there.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can't. It's just a spot of light.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think,
yeah, it was very, very satisfying doing that.
I think many of us would like to have this spot of light on their photographs. Believe me, we are envying spot of lights. So yes, and obviously the investigatory work is probably just as exciting that the imaging bits, and I think we're gonna cover that later on, because we have some joint experiences that sort of we share that kind of excitement. So do you have anything recently that you took? Any photos?
Yeah. So if we go on to a couple of slides.
Yes, I'm back. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, just to finish your story. Yes.
Yeah. So that was picked up by the Sun online again. They ringed the wrong spot of light.
Oh yes.
Anyway.
I mean, we don't expect much from the Sun, but yeah. So they should have circled this area here instead of that area. But yeah, we forgive them.
So another big exciting event was last July, and Sabi let me know that there was a chance of picking up a docking of a Soyuz as it approached the ISS. The timing was just perfect. So
tell us the story from your end, because I think that's what we have never done, I think, before. That, you know, telling the story from two different perspectives, and I think that's the utter joy of this story, that we were aiming to the same object from two different locations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we captured something incredible. I mean, just take a look at, guys, honestly, to this photograph. Seriously.
Yeah, so I was very pleased to get that. So we had a barbecue that night, and it went on, and I thought, oh no, it's you know, there's this pass coming up, so I had to excuse myself. So while the barbecue was going on, we had a summer barbecue. I retreated to the top of the garden and set the scope up, and managed to capture that amazing view there with the Soyuz just 75 meters from the ISS and just a few minutes before docking.
Unreal.
So you've got a load of stuff on your website on that, haven't you, Sabi?
I do. That's when I chip in just for a couple of minutes, because this is probably some of my really surreal experiences that I've ever witnessed. Because again, as I said with the shuttle story, by the way, before I continue, I just forgot to read you a question. Floris asks, did the astronaut react on the image of him doing the spacewalk? Do you think that did you try to let him know, or contact him that, hey, this is you here?
No, I didn't. No, mm-hmm. Maybe I should have.
I think you should, because you never know what his reaction will be. Probably he will like the fact that he's been photographed from the ground.
I think if it was a photo that clearly showed him as a figure, then I would have done it. But if it's just a spot of light, you have to go through the whole thing of explaining why I think that's him, mm-hmm. and it's less there's less of an impact then, maybe.
if you ask my opinion, I think that's definitely worth a try, because you never know. Probably he's gonna say, "Wow, this is incredible." Right. Okay. So I have some photographs related to the same event. And so this is my website called spacestationguys.com, but I think whoever subscribed to my channel or you've been to my channel, probably you already know that. And yes, so the difference I think between is worth noting that the difference between, let's say, myself and Martin is that Martin really likes to photograph in black and white, so with a monochrome camera. Versus I always sort of prefer the colors, and I know exactly that I'm ready to give up the extra amount of detail in return for the color. And I'm completely aware of that, but I just love ISS in color, and I think that's why I stick with this kind of imaging method. So you see exactly the same story. Basically, the Soyuz MS-13 was heading here to dock to the aft end of the Zvezda module. So I think this was one of our biggest luck on that evening, is because if it meant to dock to the Pierce or the Rassvet module, which is down in the nadir side, so the Earth-facing side of the ISS, then probably we wouldn't be able to capture it. The timing was perfect, but because it had to go around and coming from the side, well, from the aft, so the end of the Russian segment, that's why we captured it at this sort of position. And so on the website you will see all the details. I think both of us, Martin and myself, usually we like to share the details. On his website, every single ISS photograph has the camera details, so it's definitely worth visiting his website, because he gives you a clue on what kind of camera settings he's using, but we're gonna talk about it a little bit later. And I was with some South Koreans. We spotted the ISS first going around, basically 90 minutes before this amazing shot has been captured. And then I recorded with on my phone I was watching the live NASA coverage of the docking, and I started recording the live broadcast when I spotted the ISS, and I stopped it when the ISS was gone. So therefore I could look back the video and I could just find this screen. This is the external camera of the Soyuz spacecraft, showing the ISS and basically the docking port they were heading to. And here they always show was the relative distance from the International Space Station, and was the speed of the Soyuz spacecraft relative to the ISS. So this is why we know that it was 76 meters away. At the moment we both managed to photograph, myself South London and Martin from St Albans. So I think, and I recreated it from Lego. I just wanted to show you that sometimes you can do some fun with this. And on top, this is my equipment, and on top I included, so this is Martin's photo he showed you, and that's an animation he created, this tiny animation from the best of his frames, because that's the beauty when you image the ISS, is that if you capture enough frames that you can put them together into an animation. And the icing on the cake, our common friend Nicola Joannou from Northeast London, he captured the ISS 90 minutes later with the MS-13 docked already to the International Space Station. So I think this is just it just makes the whole story as a whole, it's just complete, and I think is just going to remain in our memory as something that's just incredible. And I'm proud that on that evening I actually sent a message to Martin, because otherwise he wouldn't have captured, and we would.
That's right.
And we wouldn't have now a brilliant topic to talk about. So I think I think sharing is a good thing, because I know some people who just like no, I'm gonna do it. I wanna have all the glory, and I think none of us are like this. And I think we try to set an example that sometimes when you work together, you can achieve much more. And we have another example that's coming up later, but I don't wanna rain down on that parade.
That's the next slide. So yeah, go for it. So the next slide is another collaboration. So Sabi alerted me to this as well. So he's great for letting you know when it's going to be an exciting thing, a nice imaging challenge. And this was the deployment of a Starlink satellite chain. So this was on the 22nd of April this year. And this was about 15 minutes after launch. And this thing was supposed to go overhead. I didn't know what to expect. And it was due, and all I could see was this aeroplane thing. And I thought, what is that it? I couldn't hear an aeroplane. So I thought, right, get the scope on it. And I honestly thought it was an aeroplane. It looked like rows of, lights, aircraft lights on the fuselage. And it was only afterwards that sort of managed to unpick and understand what was going on there. And Sabi did some tremendous investigative work to try and work out what all the various features are. Because in this shot, you obviously got the two chains of 30 per chain there, but then there's a bright dot below it, another bright dot at the bottom. I don't know if you can point out the two pins that are above the bottom.
We've got objects to start with, one here and one there, which we didn't know what it is, and we've got just below the double chain, and we also have one here, and I think one faintly just right there.
Yeah. And one to the left of that. There's another one to the left, about the same distance, the other side of that.
Is it?
Another. Go up.
Up.
From there,
oh, this one.
There.
Oh, yeah.
No, down.
Why I can't see it? I can see one here and one here. These two.
Yeah, and then there's one, the same position on the left-hand side of it, of that bright dot, about just up there.
Okay, I don't know why I can't see it. Really? Oh, here. Oh, here. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it means we didn't really solve everything then. to be fair, because they're meant to be 4 tension rods.
Yeah.
They're meant to be the upper stage. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4. But what's this bright then?
I don't know.
Because we have 5 instead of 4. Okay. We need to do some more investigation on that. What else it could be. So tell me, what was the speed and what was the feel of the object? Because I vividly remember that was not a source of a pinpoint light. So it definitely wasn't like the ISS.
No, it was like an aeroplane going over. It had some physical size to it, some definite physical size to the naked eye. It wasn't a single spot of light, and that's what confused me, because I was expecting it to be a bright spot of light that I'd trained the telescope on, and it looked like an aeroplane, sort of medium height aeroplane, not a very low one, but certainly not, one that you see high up with a contrail. It was sort of medium height, but it had some physical size to it, definitely. And that's why I thought that's what is that? And it was just weird.
And it was fast as well. Fast, incredibly
fast. It was fast. Yeah, it was as fast as an aeroplane, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely faster than the International Space Station, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely way faster. Because the whole, as far as after I spotted it, it was probably another minute and a half, and it was already far away and sort of descending. So it was such a weird feeling, definitely. Out of the usual. Floris is asking what is our emotions about. Sorry, he says mixed emotions. How do you professionals see that? So let me explain the story, and then just would you tell us what you personally think about the whole constellation and what they are proposing to do and how it affects, our precious hobby?
Yeah, okay.
So quickly, I'm just gonna run through the investigatory work, because let's be frank, you will see at the end that we both photographed, but I think what Martin captured, that's where the mono camera superiority comes out. To be honest, versus the Actually, no, I use the mono camera as well. Anyway, probably it's just more the expertise. Let's agree on that. Okay, so what you're gonna see, this is this I think is the L7, so the sixth launch, but the L7 launch of the Starlink satellites. And back then I changed it over, but back then we didn't know what this bit was. For some reason, I assumed personally on my photo that this is the second stage and this is a ride share or some extra payload. This is a photograph I captured when it was getting far away. You can see the double chain became a single chain because they are overlapping each other, and you can see the second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, really nicely. This is by far my best photograph ever about the upper stage of a Falcon 9 rocket. You can even see the engine nozzle. So we started sort of investigating, putting together all our materials. You can see some animations we created, and we tried to recreate exactly what was going on. So soon it turned out, this is Ralph van der Berg's photograph. He saw it from Holland, and some other people also Eagle Capper and some others, they photographed it. So it's luckily it has quite some photographic attention. So we found out at the very early stage that there are 4 tension rods. These tension rods are meant to hold the stack of 60 satellites in one place, basically. So just before deployment, lately SpaceX started showing the deployment of the tension rods. So you can see one actually sort of peeling off of the whole stack, so just leaving the whole stack, and then the whole stack just unfolds, and then they start the separation. So probably this is a very important thing, because I don't think that ever anybody photographed this stage of the deployment of the Starlink satellites. So we knew that there should be 4 tension rods, here just stated as rods, and here we still didn't know that. We assumed that apart from the ride share, that some of the Starlink satellites actually just fall behind or already started separating. But then I asked Martin to actually count these objects. So this is the deployment, you can see. Okay, so this is a tension rod. Yeah, I made this animation because sometimes you can see some cool stuff in the live broadcast. And then, so the top one is Martin's double chain and the bottom one is my double chain. You can see that they are pretty identical. Apart from lighting problems, they are pretty good. And also we gave different numbers to all the satellites. They look like a hedgehog. We just call it amongst ourselves the hedgehog photograph because it has this weird look. But on Martin's, where the satellites were more evenly illuminated, basically you can see all the 60 satellites. And the real fun was just coming after that, because we had this mysterious object, as you can see here, I said or stated, and we didn't know. So Martin sent me over an animation, and I started sort of rotating, trying to figure out what's exactly going on with that. And it turned out that Martin managed to photograph the turnaround of the upper stage, because it's not happening anymore with the latest launches, but with this particular launch, the upper stage didn't even do one revolution around the Earth. So they deorbited the upper stage just above somewhere near Australia. So what it does on this footage is actually turning around, facing engine nozzle forward to do to perform the orbit burn. So you can see I drew a little tiny, well, not really good upper stage here. So what I think we can see is the nozzle, which is here. If I scroll down a bit, you can see that after the engine nozzle, there's this highly reflective cover. So I think this reflects this awful amount of light here. And basically what's happening is the stage is turning around. So this bit is this bit, and you can see as it's getting shallower. So as it turns, which is, I think, this is just incredible. I mean, I can't even tell you how cool this is, because I don't think ever anybody recorded anything similar or remotely similar to this. And finally, on my photo, you can see on that same reflective cover some flaring. So I think this is again something that just makes this whole ISS imaging and in general imaging objects in the night sky just even more entertaining and more fun, because you can see that together we could come out with a proper explanation to this event. So it's just incredibly good, and I'm really pleased that Martin was also imaging again and took these incredible photographs, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a great collaboration, actually. You did some tremendous work to try and pick it apart and work out what we actually saw.
Luckily, we came up with some good results.
Yeah. No, I think the breakthrough was that because I spent a lot of time on that double spot on the upper stage there, trying to work out what those two spots were, and then you put it together that it was the reflective end of the second stage bisected by the nozzle, by the darker nozzle,
yes,
that then split it into two bright spots. And then, the penny dropped.
Yes.
then we realized what we'd captured.
And how wrong I was with the mysterious object.
But we still need to identify that other bright spot at the bottom.
Yes. Yes.
Object unknown, yeah.
Yes, I don't think we will, but yes, so yes, going back. These are your most recent ISS photographs, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, those are... No, I have taken some since then, I think. So the end of the... I've got some more... Yeah.
There we go. Okay, this is the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's 27th of May. So just to throw in some settings here. So 27th of May, that's with the 222mm Dob, 610 nanometer filter, so it's effectively a red long pass filter. It's red light and infrared. 2.7 times APM Barlow, and that's an ASI 174mm mono camera. 0.8 of a millisecond. So you've got to, if you're going to do this sort of imaging, you've got to be under a millisecond. Otherwise things smear. And a gain of 240 in fire capture, or 24 dB. So that shows some nice detail on there.
Because Floris asked previously if you could talk about exposure time. So your advice is, it seems like very similar to mine. I always say never pass the 1 millisecond sort of barrier. That's because that's when it becomes blurry and it becomes like a chewing gum and just not really pleasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me point out in this photograph that of yours, I think this is one of the HTV cargo craft, because that's usually docked to the nadir side of the Harmony module. We can see the Canadarm here beautifully. Yeah. And also this is the beam, the Bigelow expandable space habitat designed by the Bigelow company, and and also I believe it's either as well, a Soyuz or a Progress spacecraft. So you see, you can see so much stuff, guys. If you even with a you don't need a Canon, you don't need a massive telescope. Even with a modest size, you will be able to spot these incredible features.
So I have used my larger scope on a couple of occasions to image the ISS, and the next shot shows, I think the next 3 shots are different perspective shots. Yes. There you go. So that's with the big scope, 444mm, which gives you a much bigger image scale there. There's much more light. Here I used an infrared filter, so I used a 642 to 742 nanometer filter, and that sharpens things up more. Again, under a millisecond, 0.78 millisecond, and the great ASI 174 camera, and my 2.7 times Barlow. So I'm using about f12. I'm running out there.
What was roughly your focal length?
Well, focal length would be about 5 meters, somewhere around there, about 5.4 meters, something like that.
But I mean,
it gives good images, but it's a bit of a beast to be able to to swing around the sky following the ISS. So I've only used it on a couple of occasions.
I think you should definitely aim for passes between 50 and 70 degrees, because that's when you don't need to flip it, and it's still relatively easy, even with that beast, to follow it around. And obviously when it reaches the highest point, the maximum elevation, then you kind of just moving it to one direction, and that fractions of for a couple of seconds, and then obviously when it starts coming down, sort of losing the elevation, so that's definitely okay. So
I think above 40, without it being on the equatorial platform, I can get to about 40 degrees at the eyepiece without a ladder. But if you've got a 60 degree, well, with this was something like a 70 degree pass or something, and I had to have a ladder. I had to have stepping things. So as I moved the scope, I stepped off the ladder onto a box and then onto another box. So I had to plan out, so I didn't fall off in the night, exactly where I was going to tread. So it needs a lot more planning than the smaller scope where you're just standing there on the ground.
Can I ask, why do you need the ladder?
But just because the finder will be so high above the ground.
I see. So you are using an optical finder, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I've got my eye to the finder, getting that on the crosswire, getting the ISS on the crosswires, and then moving the scope so that it stays on those crosswires.
Have you considered using the tail rod? Because that's the whole advantage, and usually that's what I'm telling to people who are actually asking me about what aiming device I'm using. Because the tail rod, that's probably the advantage, that I never have to lean in the forward part of the telescope. So I can be at a distance and I can see the red sort of circle. And that probably it means that you shouldn't be stepping on a ladder then.
Yeah. No, I could try that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, more recently, on the 222mm, I managed to... I've got a different finder because I never had an illuminated reticle before. So this is a Celestron finder with an illuminated reticule, and it's got pairs of cross wires. So you've got two parallel pairs of cross wires, and so it forms a box in the middle, whereas previously you had a cross wire, and when you're on the target,
you can't see
the
it.
target's hidden. Yeah, it's hidden. So it's honestly, it makes getting that makes it so much easier to track, because you just have to keep it within the box.
Yes.
And it's actually much easier to keep something inside a box than it is on a crosswire. And the other thing is, in fire capture, there's a great little feature which is an audio signal. So if you've got something that's high on the histogram in the field of view, it will give a high-pitched tone, so you know when you've got it on the screen, because you can't possibly take your eye off the finder and look at the screen, but you can tell immediately you've got it because you're hearing it on the screen. And having that feedback makes it, again, much easier, and you get far more frames with the ISS on, just with those simple tips with parallel cross wires, and have the noise function on the audible histogram on the feature on fire capture.
I do believe that that's probably one of the most valuable advice we're gonna give our viewers who are basically just starting up with ISS imaging, or just spreading their wings. Some of them already taking some photos, but you see, I don't use this, and now I just realized that I actually should start doing this, because even through the tail rod, if I have the little circle, I can find out that which part of the circle is actually that's showing, because I try to always center it, but you can't always be so precise that it's going to be right in the middle of that circle, of the smallest circle. And with the sound, I can connect that which part where I should keep the ISS within that circle. And I share your thoughts, because that's why I stopped using red dot finders. It drove me crazy that I'm on the target when I can't see it, and it's just wrong, you know. My brain just couldn't sort of cope with that. So it's definitely
it spurs you on, because you know, if you hear that sound, you know you've got it, and and adds to the excitement and adds to your ability to carry on tracking. Whereas if you're guiding and you're doing it and you've got no idea whether you've got success or not, it's quite hard to keep going, you know, if it's a sort of 2 or 3 minute pass.
I think we all tried it in the past, that you sort of tracking and you think and you try to look at the laptop, and it's just waste of time. It's waste of time.
You can't do it.
That's just not gonna work at all.
No.
Martin, I have a couple of, just a few questions. First of all, Josh Palmer asked me in advance as well. So he says, I normally shoot the ISS in color with the ASI 224 MC color camera in combination with an IR cut filter. Is there any benefit in shooting with my 685 nanometer IR pass filter instead?
Well, that's going to give you visible light, plus it's going to give you a chunk of IR light. So that 685 is...
Do apologize. Sorry, guys. Sorry for that. I'm glad that we could manage to work it out. Okay.
Right. So back to that question. Then.
Yes.
So yes, you could try it, and you'd get some light through, but you're going to be losing quite a lot of light by blocking out your visible light and restricting yourself to 685. I would, if you pick a 610 nanometer, you might be better off. But you're going to be, your red pixels will be strongly activated, but your green and your blue aren't going to be doing much.
So is it probably wise to say that you can use filter, it's not gonna be disadvantage too much, even with the color camera, but it wouldn't. Because what we see, we discussed this question before we came on air, and the problem is that you are using. So one is using a color camera, and then you're gonna limit yourself to distort the colors, so that you eventually not gonna end up with color photographs. So you have to transform it into black and white images, and then to end up with black and white images, what is the point then using a filter for a color camera if you could just go for a monochrome camera?
It's going to be all red. If you put a 685 nanometer filter in front there on a color camera, you're going to get a red image on screen.
I tried it from experience with that precise camera, because we still with Josh's question with the 224 MC camera, and I can't deny that yes, the details were nicer. So if let's say you're in a position that you cannot purchase a mono camera alongside your existing color camera, then yes, absolutely, if you want more details, then probably it's worth using a red filter or an IR let's say pass. Or which one would you recommend more, a pass or cut filter, IR cut or IR pass filter?
Well, if you're going to do color, you want an IR cut filter, because otherwise your dispersion effects, so the atmosphere at low altitude acts like a prism, so and that particularly affects color cameras, because they've got a very wide band pass on the color filters. So your dispersion effects are going to be much worse if you don't cut the IR light. So you need, if you're going to use a color camera, you need an IR blocking filter. If you're going to work in the IR and kill the colors and just use it as a mono camera, which you can do on some of these cameras like the 224, then you want an IR long pass filter. So there's a Barda 610 long pass, which is quite good. There's a Barda, it used to be called the 610, but now it's just called the Barda red long pass filter. So it allows IR through and red light, and your dispersion effects will be much less in red and IR. They'll be worse if you pick all the colors and IR. You'll get bad dispersion effects, and you'll start to see sort of spectral colors and things like that, and color smearing.
Okay. Well, I hope this answers some of those questions that I received, and I think we owe Floris an opinion about the Starlink satellites.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's the price of progress, isn't it? Really, people want they want communication with their mobile phones, and this is the price you pay, really. But I think possibly the brightness has been overblown a bit. They are working hard to try and bring the brightness of the Starlink satellites down, and that's important because there's going to be so many of them. It is early days, and there's quite a few thousand still to go up there.
Yes.
And the hope is that by coating technologies on those satellites and by angling them in a particular way, they'll reduce the impact, because it's not just amateur astronomers. It's can affect the work of multi-million pound observatories across the world. Will be affected by these satellites, because there's just so many of them potentially going to be up there. And it's not just SpaceX, it's other companies as well who want to put them up there by the thousand. So it is a big issue. I do feel they've sort of managed to rush into it because there is no legislation and people can put stuff up there, and by the time we go, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that, it'll be too late.
Within my community, so I run with a couple of guys who I think some of them were here and were watching this talk. So we do a live webcast in Hungarian, and also because of our photographs we achieved together. I think I got and I took some individual photos of the Starlink satellites. I think it's first of all it's a very divisive topic, and quite rightly, obviously. But I think it's a little bit we became a little bit tribal about these topics, and so don't get me wrong. So I see the negative side, and for me it's more the junk. So the amount of hardware that will be on low Earth orbit, that's more bothering me, because yes, professional astronomy from certain observatories might not be that much limited, because SpaceX is showing the willingness to, let's say, switch them off when they are flying above these areas. So SpaceX, despite a lot of people think that they try not to mitigate the problem, they actually do try to mitigate the problem. So they worked on the visor shots, they worked on different orientation, they already brought down the visibility of the Starlink satellites by a great deal, and I do believe that they're gonna work on it, and they will achieve what they have to. It still will affect professional astronomy, but I think if we see the bigger picture on our webcasts, we always go through the Starship developments, the next big rockets from SpaceX. And let's be frank, if that goes on, and it will happen, and it will be built, then it will be bigger than the Saturn V rocket, 100% fully reusable rocket, and that will be able to take any telescopes wherever we want. It can be on the moon, it can be on low Earth or different orbits from the Earth. So I think professional astronomy will at some point move away from the grounds. Not entirely, because it's still very important. But what I see in the community, and I try not to have a rant about it, I regularly do now in our webcast. So what kind of angers me is that I see the same photographs appearing in the news outlets, showing that they taking away our night sky and they ruining our night sky, and all kinds of clickbait headlines. And everybody knows, who spend a little bit of time with the Starlink satellites, is that they are the brightest at the beginning of their lifetime, so the first few weeks, and they dramatically change. So why not the astronomers actually trying to show what the actual situation is? Because you are picking the time when they are the brightest, and that's not how bright they are at their operational orbit. They come down significantly. So if they want to show what the impact on the astronomy community is from the Starlink satellite, then they should come on board and they should image these objects when they are their final orbit, and then we could see exactly how it's impacting our hobby, and how that can we mitigate them by stacking processes and all kinds of processes. So I see that some astronomers, they went so far away from this topic that they don't really care about reality anymore. They don't care about facts anymore. And that kind of bothers me, because I always found the astronomy community a very intelligent community. And it just, I don't know. For me, it's hard to digest at the moment, because I have two really good hobbies clashing now: rocketry and astronomy, and I utterly love both. And I love photograph, one overlapping the other, like the ISS, and that's why it's bothering me a little bit that it's dividing people. I mean, but today everything is a divisive topic, right? So yes. Okay, so I hope we answered the questions. If you guys have any more questions quickly in the next couple of minutes, we are more than happy to just shoot a very quick answer. In the meantime, I would just like to do some bit of promotion for both of us. So again, I would like to show, please follow Martin on let's say Twitter. His He's called the Sky Inspector, or Sky Inspector, at Sky Inspector. His website is skyinspector.co.uk. He's just redone his website. It's incredibly detailed, very good stuff, lots of writings about astronomy photography. If you want to add a couple of things, I don't want to say all the good things about your website.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, Sabis helped me. I had to learn. I had a website, was perfectly happy with it, and then the people that were running it said, "Oh yeah, your website it's going down at the end of the month. We're gonna delete it because it was written in sort of proprietary software." So I had a month to learn WordPress and transfer all the content, rebuild the whole website from scratch in a month, which I just managed to do. and actually it's better now than it was before. So every cloud's got a silver lining.
At least it was worth doing it.
Yeah.
Please navigate me. Where are your nighttime Venus images?
Right, so if you go to digital video images,
okay,
then under Venus
and Mercury, I couldn't find them there. I just want to show one of them too.
And then if you go to, say, the 8th or 9th one down, can you see the gallery, the Venus gallery?
Oh, there we go. All right. Okay.
So the ones with the big crosses in the background.
There we go. There we go. Yes. Now, for some reason, it didn't drop me here. So definitely, apart from Martin's ISS photographs, I mean, this is something not many people do. Let's be frank. So definitely make your way to skyinspector.co.uk, because you will see some incredible photographs. And what I really like is that Martin is writing a lot. So you're writing to the British Astronomical Association, if I can finally pronounce it. I can't talk at the end of the evening. And also to Sky at Night.
Sky at Night magazine, yeah. So I write regularly for Sky at Night magazine, various articles on imaging and equipment reviews, and yeah, I've just had a big article in the BAA journal about Mars imaging and a particular artifact that you get when you image Mars, and what to do about it. Again, a big investigation, really. So I like these big astro investigations. I find them a real challenge.
Something out of the box, I would say. It's definitely not the mainstream thing, but yeah, this is brilliant. Yes. And finally, anybody who just visited today, on my website on spacestationguys.com, I have a shop apart from all the photos and all the advices. And if you would like to wear something interesting, let's say we started, I created my own ISS 20 design, and I have some Starship design and my own ISS logo. So if you're interested of any of these things, just make your way to the shop, and probably you can find something interesting for yourself, guys. And I think that's it from us today. Hopefully you got quite some question. You got a nice inside look of how us International Space Station photographers work and what's behind all this work. And I think we can come to a conclusion, Martin, that definitely the starting point for both of us was astronomy and astronomy photography. So
sure, yeah.
I will and I cannot deny that without astronomy and astronomy photography, I wouldn't do this today, and probably that would stand for you as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, you know. I enjoy the challenge of imaging something that's moving at such a high speed, man-made object that's, you know, the same distance. You're basically trying to photograph a front door at the distance of Liverpool from London. You know, that's the sort of scale that you're at. You know, when you pick up the finest detail, it's the size of a front door at 300 or 400 miles away,
which is
incredible. Imagine a front door flying at 50,000 miles an hour, and you're tracking it with your telescope and trying to capture what shape it is.
It's quite hard to chew, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm thinking that, okay, so when the ISS is flying above us, so that's when it's the closest. So at its closest, it's still 400 kilometers away. So here, Liverpool is 400 kilometers, so 270, 80 miles. Am I right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when it's the closest,
Yeah.
So for us, if anybody listen, I can see that there are some from Hungary. I'm from Mátészak, which is the eastern part of the country. So you have to pass Budapest, which is 300 kilometers away, and you're still not at the distance of where the ISS, or if we would look down horizontal, but obviously we do not. Right, I'm gonna write some comments. So first of all, Floris is sending greetings from Netherlands. Thanks for tuning us, Floris. You are a valuable member. He said that this was truly inspiring. Martin, you are very motivating in terms of what we could do as amateurs. Sabi, you rock. Thank you so much. And also, Peter Presland just commented, light pollution from the ground is far bigger problem than Starlink. Yes. And he also appreciated for both of us the work. So,
oh, great.
Let's call it, let's be this the conclusion. I think it's a very, very nice way to end this amazing evening. So thank you all guys for tuning in. Martin, thanks very much for accepting.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Yeah,
you were my very first guest. This will be a series, and I'm planning to invite other ISS photographers to this program.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I think this is how we can bring onto the topic more people, just pulling in as we show our struggles, show our results, how we do it. So I think hopefully lots of people will watch it at some point and will get some inspiration from yourself and hopefully myself as well.
Yeah, great. No, really enjoyed it. And I think that's one of the things about ISS imaging. It pulls in so many different things, and it's a very, it's a human thing, isn't it, really? It pulls in all your skills, photography, processing, understanding of optics, the weather, determination, resilience, planning, organization. So many different things have to come together to get that one inspiring picture.
Totally. And I think sometimes we tend to forget. Sometimes when I used to go to a park and usually people are coming by, and if I tell them come back at this and this time and you will see the ISS for the first time in your life, and they come back, and I think we tend to forget that it's been 20 years now that there were always people on board. So in the past 20 years, if you ever looked up to the International Space Station, there were always a couple of guys up there working hard, they bottoms off basically for you and me, for our benefit. So this is a great day to celebrate 20 years of continuous human presence on the International Space Station. They are our rock stars. So, thank you all the astronauts doing this amazing job and give us a target to image. So, okay, thanks very much everybody to tune in. Thanks again, Martin, and I see you all.
Thanks, Abby. Loved it.
And I see you all at some point. Keep looking up and do the ISS imaging. It's worth it. You can do it. All right. See you guys.
Okay. Cheerio. Bye.
Bye.